At the time of recording, which is the 31st of December 2025, I have 174 coaster credits. And as literally every other theme park YouTuber does, I'll be ranking my favorites. So, without wasting any more time, here is my top 25 of 2025. Number 25 is Nemesis Reborn at Alton Towers. This is a B&M invert which originally opened in 1994, but then closed in 2022 to then reopen 2 years later in 2024. The main thing I like about this ride is how intense it is. The helix after the corkscrew is just insane. Like, I grey out every time, and then you then pull into that 0G roll over the station with the smoke in your face. Best moment on the ride by far. Also, in addition, I love that it's a terrain coaster. The only reason this doesn't rank higher in my list is that I just don't like inverts in general. However, I can definitely appreciate why this is higher on other people's lists. Number 24 is Orion at Kings Island. This is a B&M Giga coaster. It's 287 feet tall with a 300-foot drop, so while the height isn't a giga, the drop makes it a giga. What I really love about this coaster is just how fast and tall it is. I mean, it's extremely smooth, so it's just an enjoyable ride, but that kind of leads me on to what makes it not so good, is that it doesn't really have any forceful moments. It's got a few floater hills, and it's got a nice helix, but to be honest, I wouldn't say boring, but it definitely could be better and doesn't utilize the speed and height that it has. Number 23 is yet another B&M, and that is Silver Star at Europa Park. This is a B&M hypercoaster, and the first half of this layout is enjoyable. It has some nice floater airtime, but where it really shines is in the second half. Out of all the B&M hypers I've done, Silver Star definitely has the best second half. However, the weaker first half is what makes this not so high up on my list. At number 22 is Stealth at Thorpe Park. This is an Intamin accelerator coaster, and by far the standout moment on this is the punchy launch. There's a bit of a debate on whether this or Max Force has the fastest acceleration, but regardless of that, it's still extremely punchy and you can really feel it. Guess the only downside to this ride is that it's just a little short, but honestly, I don't really think it needs to be much longer. At number 21 is Big Bear Mountain at Dollywood. This is a Vekoma family multi-launch, and it probably is a bit odd that I rank this higher than the ones below, which are much more thrilling. But honestly, this ride is just pure fun. Like, it's so smooth. It pulls some decent forces as well. The second half, and it's so long, and the launches are great. Like, this is just a really good all-round roller coaster. The only reason it doesn't rank higher is for obvious reasons, that it's a family coaster, so there's just naturally going to be ones better than this. At number 20 is the Smiler at Alton Towers. This is a Gerstlauer Infinity coaster, and it holds the record for the most inversions on one roller coaster at 14. The airtime hills, however, on this coaster is my favourite bit. There's 2 airtime hills, and the second one in specific, you get so much ejector from it, and it's sustained. It's a great moment. The downside to this ride, however, is the ending with the Cobra Roll and the double barrel roll. It's really rough, which is a shame because it would be much higher on my list if it wasn't for that. At number 19 is Cuckoo Lane. I know I'm not saying that right, but I don't know how to say it. At Tato Park, or now known as Emerald Park. This is a Gravity Group wooden coaster, and the pacing in the first half is just absolutely insane. There's some great moments of airtime, including the first drop and that bunny hill that you do in the tunnel. Also, it's just a very long ride. It goes on for ages and it keeps wrapping around itself. The main issue with this ride is that it's just a bit rough. I rode it a few years ago and had a bit of a headache after a few rides, and I've heard reports that it's even worse now. At number 18, sticking to the wooden theme, is Woden Timber Coaster at Europa Park. This is a GCI Woody. I placed this just slightly above Cuckoo Lane just for one reason, and that's the theming. Europa Park has some of the best theming in the world, and the Icelandic area, which Woden is situated in, is just beautiful. Not only that, but this coaster is very well-rounded. The first drop in specific is my favourite part by far. You build up some speed going around that turn after the lift hill, and then you just fly down into a drop under a tunnel. It's a great moment with some amazing airtime, and this is just an incredibly well-rounded roller coaster. At number 17 is Millennium Force. This is an Intamin Giga Coaster, and it's 310 feet and hits max speed of 93 miles per hour. This is just a pure fun ride. The first drop is great. The next turnaround is a little weak in my opinion, but then it heads into a really nice floater hill where you get amazing views of Cedar Point skyline. I love this ride. I didn't get to ride it too much because it was closed on 2 out of the 3 days I was there, but it was still really good, and honestly, if it was at almost any other park, it would probably be my number 1 there. At number 16, we're staying in Ohio, but going down to Kings Island for Mystic Timbers. This is a GCI Woody with insane pacing. It just never loses its speed. It stays so low to the ground after that first drop, and it's just out of control. When riding, I could hardly keep my arms up, that's how intense it was. My only downside to this, I'd say, is that I wish there was some more sustained airtime. It's very much ejector pops, which is nice, but I prefer sustained airtime. Staying in the same park for number 15, it's Diamondback. This is a B&M hypercoaster, and the sustained floater airtime you get on the first hills is unbelievable. You are out of your seat for a good few seconds, not just the first hill, but also the second hill. The only downside to this coaster is that the second half is a little weaker than the first half. However, the first half is just so good that it more than makes up for it. At number 14, we have Twisted Timbers at King's Dominion. This is an RMC iBox coaster, the first RMC of many on this list. And while this is the weaker of the RMCs I've done, it's still a great ride. There's amazing airtime moments, and the 3 back-to-back airtime hills are definitely the best moment of this ride. There's nothing bad to say about this ride, I just prefer the other RMCs I've ridden. Number 13 is Hyperia at Thorpe Park. This is a Mack Rides hypercoaster, and it opened in 2024. This is the UK's tallest roller coaster, and in my opinion was a perfect addition for Thorpe Park. The ride has some insane elements, it's extremely unique, I've never seen a hypercoaster like it, and that outer bank inversion, whatever you want to call it, is just insane. It's so much sustained airtime, followed by whipping upside down. Best moment on that coaster, and probably the best moment in a UK roller coaster. At number 12 is Intimidator 305 at King's Dominion. I guess it's now called Pantherian, I think that's how you say it, but I rode it when it was I-305, so I'm just going to call it that. This is an Intamin Giga Coaster, and it's unlike any other Giga Coaster in the world. It's extremely intense, and mostly stays low to the ground other than that first airtime hill. Don't get much airtime, so I guess that's a con, but the G's are just insane, and the whip you get between the transitions, it's unlike anything I've ever ridden. At number 11 is Mako at SeaWorld Orlando. This is a B&M hypercoaster, and is my favourite B&M hypercoaster, due to the strong amount of airtime on that first floater hill. You are out of your seat for 5 seconds, probably more. People talk about this element, and when I rode this, I was like, there's no way it can be that good. But it actually was. As well as that, the speed hill's nice, and I love the little ending going over the water. It's a really nice effect, and also looks great off-ride. We're now in my top 10. At number 10 is Siren's Curse at Cedar Point. This is a Vekoma tilt coaster, which opened just this year in 2025. I wasn't actually expecting much from this ride, but it really surprised me. The tilt's nice, especially when you're in the back, but then the rest of the layout actually packs more of a punch than I thought it would. The airtime's great, and there's some really nice whippy inversions, especially that last barrel roll. It's a great moment, a great ride, and it's just a really nice addition to Cedar Point's already incredible lineup. At number 9 is Untamed at Wallaby Holland. This is an RMC iBox coaster, and it is just insane with the amount of airtime it has. I love the first inversion. It's like this weird, it does a 0G roll, but then it stops and then twists back the other way. It doesn't look like it does much, and it really surprised me on the first ride, just how much floater airtime you get on that. You're out of your seat the whole time. Then the second half as well, when you're going through the structure, it's a load of ejector airtime. I'd say the con with this is that right at the end, the airtime is almost too strong, that after a few rides, I ended up with painful thighs and bruises on my thighs. But overall, it's a really nice, intense coaster. Then at number 8 is Voltron at Europa Park. This is a Mack Striker coaster which opened in 2024, and this is just a perfect all-around coaster. There's nothing really to flaw it about. It's got great theming, it's nice and intense, multiple launches, great inversions, great airtime. There's really nothing bad to say about this ride, and I can completely understand why for some people this is their number one. This next one might come as a bit of a shock for some people, but number 7 is Thunderhead at Dollywood. This is a GCI Woody, and honestly, I didn't go into this with many expectations at all, but the pacing on this is insane. It's so out of control. There's some incredible airtime moments, some incredible whippy transitions, and I personally think it's one of the most underrated coasters. At number 6, we have Maverick at Cedar Point. This is a compact Intamin multi-launch coaster, and for many, it's their favourite coaster at the park, and I can definitely see why. It's very intense. The second launch, by far, is my favourite moment on the ride. Only thing that holds it back for me are the restraints. They're not super comfortable. If you've done the likes of Rita, they're pretty similar to that. So unfortunately, that's why I don't rank it higher. However, I can still appreciate the intensity of this coaster with some amazing airtime moments and an incredibly punchy second launch. Now, into my top 5, just beating out Maverick is Velocicoaster at Islands of Adventure. This is an Intamin multi-launch as well, however, it's one of their newer generations, and I think this roller coaster, just like Voltron, is an incredibly well-rounded coaster. The theming is insanely immersive. I mean, you wouldn't expect any less from Universal. The launches are great, some nice inversions, and I love that top hat into that stool, and then those wave turns, and also that Mosasaurus roll at the end over the water. So many people rave about this ride, and I can definitely see why. Then at number 4 is Steel Vengeance at Cedar Point. This is an RMC iBox coaster, which quite a lot of people say is the best coaster in the world. However, for me, it was just a little overhyped. It's incredibly forceful, it's very long, it just feels like it never ends. There's some really nice airtime moments, and the drop's great. I've heard some people say it's a little repetitive, which I can kind of get, but also it's still forceful, so I'm not complaining about that. However, my third favourite coaster is also an RMC and just beats Steel Vengeance by a little bit, and that is Lightning Rod at Dollywood. This is kind of a mix between an RMC, iBox, and a topper track. It started off as just topper track, but then they've retracked some sections of it to make it smoother. And this ride is just so much fun. The first half is nice, it's good, but where it really shines is the second half. The quad down finale is sustained ejector again and again and again, and then the bottom of that quad down, the speed you feel is so insane, and it's just such a good ride. I literally did this like 20 times in one day, and it absolutely blew me away. Oh, that rhymed. Anyways, number 2 is also an RMC, and that's Iron Gwazi at Busch Gardens, Tampa Bay. This is an RMC iBox coaster over 200 feet, and there is not a single element on this where it dies down. It is non-stop, start to finish. The moment you drop off that lift hill, which by the way is the best drop I've ever experienced, you just are thrown around in every direction. The airtime is some of the strongest I've ever experienced. Some of those hills are like pure sustained ejector, and it is just insane. It's like the ride wants to throw you out the seat. And honestly, I go between this being my favourite and the next one being my favourite, so you could ask me on a different day and I may say this is my favourite. But just for this list, I've put this at number 2. And number 1 is... I'm pausing for suspense. Top Thrill 2 at Cedar Point. This is an Intamin launched Stratocoaster, although it's technically also mixed with Zamperla because they did the swing launch with the spike, so I don't really know who's the manufacturer of it. At the time of recording this is no longer the world's tallest coaster because Falcon's Flight has just opened. However, for me, this is the tallest coaster I've been on, and you can really feel it. When you go up that backwards spike and you look up, you can just see the whole park, you can see the top hat, and it's just a view that I'll never forget. In addition to that, this ride pulls some surprising forces actually. There's some really strong Gs going into that spike, and also there's some nice airtime going over the top if you're in the back, and the whip down that drop, that twisted drop, is amazing, especially if you're in the outer seat. The whole ride is just amazing. I've never done anything else like it, and that is why it's my number 1. So, that's my top 25. Let me know if you agree with my rankings, disagree with my rankings, and also what's your favourite roller coaster? I hope you've all enjoyed the video, and I want to wish you all a happy new year as it's the last day of 2025, and I can't wait to see where this channel goes in 2026. Bye!